Warning, this podcast contains violence, sexuality, gore, and other horrible and disturbing things. Listener discretion is advised. Also, the hosts of this venture are ignorant dipshits, so please do not take anything they say as fact. And enjoy the show.
Now, are you sitting comfortably? Good. Then we'll begin.
Today we had 15 homicides and 63 violent crimes, as if that's the way it's supposed to be.
The atoms in your left hand probably came from a different star than your right hand.
It is our basic human right to be forgotten.
A second plane now has crashed into the other tower of the World Trade Center.
Put chemicals in the water that turn the friggin' frogs gay.
The defendant shall be incarcerated for the rest of her natural life with no possibility of parole.
You are not machines. You are not cattle. You are men.
We were somewhere around Barstow, on the edge of the desert, when the drugs began to take hold.
Occultae Veritatis. Alrighty, so when we last left off, Ron Gillespie, the husband of Mary Gillespie, the one who first started receiving the letters, had just received a mysterious phone call and burst out of the house to confront this man. I'll leave the first part of that story in this episode so you can just get recapped, but it escalates. Things get worse. And we're going to dive more into the CircleVille writer. Enjoy.
Driving around CircleVille today would be much like driving around Round Town in the late 1970s. Nothing changes much. In fact, the population continues to go down. There would be one major change, though. Back then, there were the letters. The CircleVille letters.
And a lot of it was vindictive in tone. I mean, nasty in tone. There was sexually oriented material or accusations of vulgar is the only way, to really describe them.
The letters were often threatening missives sent to people in Pickaway County. We're not talking about a couple or hundreds, but thousands of letters. They all had the same block lettering, and they would target politicians and leaders, but also just plain folks who had nothing to do with the running of CircleVille at all.
Just as the Gillespies were starting to think the whole incident had passed, Ron received a mysterious phone call on August 19th, 1977. He happened to pick up the phone, hear 30 seconds of talking from the other end, and the children, who were in the same room as Ron, report hearing the sentence, I'm watching you, said by the caller. The children disagreed whether the voice was male or female, but they knew that they heard the words, I'm watching you.
Maybe it was just ambiguous enough that...
Could be.
I also have a very deep man voice, so it could,
depending how...
I'm also drinking this. You just haven't touched it in forever.
Oh, I forgot it was mine.
I don't know. Early in the morning, my voice is pretty high, but by the end of the day, it gets gravelly. So he happened to pick up the phone and hear, So the children were unclear on the clarity. So the children think they heard that. So it isn't 100% reliable, but all three of them seem to agree that they heard those words, disagree on what the gender of the caller was. They also claim their dad didn't seem drunk. Not that he wasn't drunk, but didn't seem drunk.
He did that dad thing where it was like, you heard that. And the kids were like, okay, fuck, yeah, I did. It's fine.
So Mary never did find out who or what was on that call. All she knew that Ron picked up the phone, she heard him slam it back down, he went to get his revolver, and in a huff and a puff, he raged and left the house.
He blew the house down.
Yeah. The children described him as muttering under his breath that he's going to confront the letter writer. So he got a phone call, got his pistol, huffed out of the house, got in his pickup truck, took off, and the children say that he was going to confront the letter writer. Less than 1 kilometer away from his house. So this is an area where he is intimately familiar with. And I Google mapped the area. It isn't crowded. It isn't like a confusing suburb. There's lots of open space, even in 1977, so he would have had a clear sight. The roads that night were in perfect condition. The forecast had no ice on the road. There was nothing raining. The roads were in good condition at the time. At an intersection close to where he lived, less than a kilometer away, Ron's vehicle lost control and struck a tree and killed Ron Gillespie.
Damn.
When the police investigated the crash, at first they said that there was some malicious intent and there were some unknowable things. Like they
like Mothman.
Yeah, they described it as a murder or a homicide instead of just him having an accident. The sheriff, once he investigated, admitted to Mary that he thought there was some ill intent. But a couple days later, and who knows what happened in those couple days, when he spoke to the media and to the rest of town, he said, "Oh, it's just an accident. It's just a plain accident."
Hella sus.
Yeah, yeah, suspect. Very.
Didn't they also determine that he had fired off one shot, too, before he crashed?
Oh, yeah.
So was he really not drunk, or were they actually covering up for him, though? Because, like, this is, like, back in the day, right? So everybody was drinking all the time.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, so he had strange facts began to arise, and exactly on that point, blood alcohol level at 1.5 times the legal limit.
Damn.
So that's equivalent for a guy his size of drinking 5 beers over 2 hours.
That's like nothing. I can drink 5 beers over 2 hours.
I can drink 5 beers in about 20 minutes, honestly.
Well, yeah.
I have a pretty high tolerance when it comes to weed, but I'm kind of a lightweight when it comes to alcohol. Yeah.
I have a high tolerance with alcohol.
Maybe the town of Columbus was just like, let's fuck with these CircleVille people. And that was it. It was just this, like, it's like Woolerton versus Dog, remember? It's like, let's just fuck with these people.
Yeah.
Okay, everyone pick a resident, write a letter, and we'll go.
Basically, small towns love getting into like passionate feuds with one another.
And exactly what Selkie said as well. They discovered that Ron's gun had been recently fired once. Detectives could find no reason or excuse for Ron to have fired at all. They couldn't find any bullet holes. They couldn't find any ricochet dents. They couldn't find any signs of the bullet. But yet it had recently fired one bullet. The police determined it to be an accident internally, and then they announced it to the media, when just earlier the sheriff admitted to Mary that there was some ill intent, that there was a suspect in mind, that it was a murder, not an accident. This is the strange thing. As if the letter writer knew what their conclusion was, so before the police released their investigation findings and announced it as an accident, before they announced that, they began to receive letters, and people in the town began to receive letters saying the police are fucking this investigation up.
No shit.
It wasn't an accident. It was a murder. Do better. Encourage the police to do better, because it wasn't an accident.
Oink, oink.
All that stuff. So, like, why would this letter writer, if they were guilty of this, be so determined to have the police correct an accident?
Yeah.
They're not getting tipped.
And here's a copy of a letter that they were sent. Who would like to read this one?
I'll read whatever. So it's dated March 1944. It says, "Please know, letters were before 1977. Writer almost had another innocent man put in prison. Haha. Druid Longberry would have if the man in prison now had not tried to trick writer with writer's own writing for homebreaker Gillespie. See what he got. Haha. He will not get
out of
prison. Dr. Radcliffe will take his place. There was foul play, and then it looks like it was taken away. They still together. 2 teenage boys seen what happened. You always use high speed for elimination of someone if you must get rid of them.
Okay.
You don't know fire shots for drinking. There were... And then it cuts off.
It's Google. It's come full circle. It's Google.
Oh, yeah.
It's gotta be.
It's not human. Like,
It's
it doesn't
Google.
come across here.
It's fucked up.
Because Google knows everything.
Well, it's a bot.
And
it's like 1977 Google.
The dark web has already been created. I heard your podcast.
It's 100% different writing.
It is. It's different writing. But it's still Google, because Google knows all our secrets.
It's true. Like, somebody else has picked up on the trend of the letters. Like, this is like facts now.
Yeah.
So
That's totally different writing than the last one.
And even like the use of the English language is totally different.
Well, it was still like broken in body in the other one.
But before, the other one was like higher spaces. The words were like in cursive, like the paper you got when you wrote in cursive. You know what I mean? So it had that weird middle dash line.
Right.
And the block letters were like big blocks.
Yeah.
I'm a block letter writer, and you could never make me change to this.
No.
I think I hear a confession.
Oh, it's Google.
Done. Yeah.
It's Google.
Insert dramatic prairie dog clip. Yes.
Okay, I need to go.
BRB, bye.
Yeah. So
this is so fucked.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, and the letter writer doesn't seem to get to the point right away. They seem to have a roundabout way of talking about things. Like the letters are very vague, and you have to like interpret them to see what the fuck they're talking about.
Because a bot fucking wrote it. It was Google.
Yeah.
Kind of sounds like a bot.
It really does. That's what's so weird about it. Is that it's what year?
It's like when you plug something into Google Translate. It's kind of like what you get.
Broken English.
So you guys remember that they sent letters to their brother-in-law and saying they knew what he did and why he did it, and that he should cut it out. And the letter stopped. Ron got a mysterious phone call, charged out of the house, crashed into a tree, died, all kinds of fucky shit around the investigation. After this, the letters began once again. Mary, her immediate family, and even elected city officials and local government began to receive letters in droves. This is when the rumor mill that the CircleVille writer was trying to construct went into full swing. It spread the rumor of the affair far and wide, so it was basically telling the whole town that the affair existed. Mary was still very frequently mentioned in the letters. The letters showed a particular vengeance and hostility towards Mary Gillespie and continued to threaten her over the torrid affair until she broke down and admitted she was indeed having the affair. This happened after Ron was dead.
Oh boy.
Yeah. And this is when she claimed that the affair started, but only after she received the letters.
Was the person she was having the affair was connected to anybody else?
Oh, likely. He was the superintendent of school, so he would have probably a lot of political connections. Like, you have to be involved in local government to be that high.
He was fucking everybody.
Yeah.
Superintendent.
Super Nintendo.
Hi, Super Nintendo Chalmers.
And the letters continued on to not only taunt Mary, but to taunt her local family. And there was no way to prove if they were coming from Paul Freshour, who denied having anything to do with them when confronted. Of course, he could just be bullshitting about that.
Like you do.
Yeah, the letters continued on a regular basis until 1983, when the letter writer escalated their behavior. Mary was a school bus driver. She was driving on her route, and she ran into something unexpected. Now, something happened 30 minutes before she ran into that unexpected thing. There was a person driving another bus on the same route as Mary, except 30 minutes ahead of her. They spotted somebody in the exact same spot that Mary ran into the unexpected thing. It was a tall, broad, muscular man, who was acting strangely. She said that, the bus driver said that she could see that he had his pants done up. He was kind of just standing by the side of the road, looking around. And even though she saw that his pants were done up, nothing was hanging out, he wasn't doing anything. As soon as he spotted the bus and spotted her spotting him, he ran to the bush and pretended he was peeing.
Oh.
So he was
He just had his dick out?
No, he had.
He didn't have his dick out.
pretending.
Yeah.
He was
and then as
pretending
soon
like
as
he
he
was.
Oh,
Yeah.
like he got
Dicks out
busted
for
doing like a weird
CircleVille.
thing, and then he pulled his dick out in front of a school bus of kids?
He didn't
Oh,
pull.
yeah.
I don't think he pulled it out. He just
Yeah,
pretended
like,
he was peeing.
he
or
was
something.
he was doing
He got
something.
spooked.
He was
Okay,
doing
gotcha.
something else, and then as a cover, he pretended he was
Yeah.
peeing. So as a cover for whatever
Okay.
else he was doing, he pretended he was peeing, which is mysterious.
It's so
This whole thing's
is
giving me
so-
goosebumps.
I
like-
know.
We
I
know
like
this
nightmares
part.
about
We
this.
This is the.
I know, but I'm so uncomfortable right now. It's making me really antsy.
Yeah. So tall, broad, sandy-haired Caucasian driving a yellow El Camino. This is nothing like Paul. I've looked at pictures of Paul. Paul is a short, stout, olive-skinned man. He's like a meatball.
Poor Paul.
Yeah.
Aw.
Me too, to be honest.
Yeah. This
Same.
Now, this
Spring pants.
Yeah.
Cute pants.
Also, like, instead of just pulling off to the side of the road, the bus driver thought it was strange because his car was pulled all the way into the ditch.
Oh.
Like, into a spot where she was a little worried that he might not be able to get out.
Oh.
Yeah.
So that's how far into the ditch he was.
What? This is so weird.
Right? So that was 30 minutes before Mary ran into the unexpected thing. So 30 minutes before Mary got there, she spotted the other bus driver spotted the mysterious man. So Mary drove along her route, in the exact spot where the man was 30 minutes before, she spotted a large sign made out of cardboard that insulted her children.
What?
I couldn't find any information about what the sign actually said. The documentary had a sign up that says, like, blank's child sucks, but I think it probably was more than that.
You suck!
Yeah.
Fuck your kid.
Your kid sucks.
Yeah.
Oh, you got me.
So funny.
So she...
I mean, you're not wrong.
She didn't want a school bus full of kids to see that she just passed by, because the letter mentioned, like, I think it mentioned her name, so she knew it was associated. So she pulled over on the side of the road. She ripped the sign down, and she found something weird. There was a piece of string attached to the bottom of the sign that led to this metal box. And she didn't know what it was. She took the metal box down and took it into the bus, and she opened it up. And she discovered that the string led from the cardboard sign inside the metal container to a pistol.
Ooh.
And it failed to go off, but the way it was designed, was when she tore the sign down, the gun would shoot her. And because she had to reach up and grab the sign, it would have shot her right in the face.
Jesus.
So it was designed to take her out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
Good God.
Okay, so I'm so sorry. This is so complicated for me to understand and grasp because I would never do this.
Oh my God.
So she drives by this guy in a yellow car.
The bus driver ahead of her.
Okay, the bus driver ahead of her drives by this guy.
Yeah.
With a yellow car.
Yep.
Who's pretending to pee after he gets spooked. And then all of a sudden she has this mystery killing box.
Yep.
Yeah.
So, like, who the fuck is he? The local hairstylist? Like, why is his car yellow?
He is.
Maybe.
Like, you have to be very flamboyant for a yellow car. Like,
Yeah. Well, he's a hairdresser.
Exactly. I'm saying, tip your service people. It can really go. Like, you could be Mary at any point if you're not tipping appropriately. 25%.
So, the police were called, and they discovered that the serial number was crudely filed off. But there's a cool little forensic, like, I'm very critical of forensic science, because a lot of it is bullshit that is kept in the court system because it can put poor people away in jail when it doesn't have any scientific basis. So there's a lot of forensic science that I think is bullshit. But
go back to that episode.
Yes. I forget the future Ood, insert whatever number that episode is, I forget.
I forget too.
Hey, past dude, that was case number 42, forensic pseudoscience. But a cool little piece of forensic science is when you have a serial number imprinted on a gun, if you go in with a microscope and certain chemical treatment techniques, you can see in the layers of the metal underneath where it was imprinted will be microscopic imperfections and cracks. And you can track the metal and kind of retrace where the numbers were. So you can retrace the serial number. So, moral of the story is, if you're trying to hide a gun, file deep. Like we said, like, if you're left enough, you're pro-gun again. So, sometimes you gotta protect your stores.
I'm anti-gun, but
yeah, so the gun was traced back to Paul Freshour. Again, he denies everything. He states the gun went missing.
Hold on a second.
Yep.
I didn't realize it was Paul.
Well, that's the thing. The gun was traced back to Paul, but the guy that was spotted looks nothing like Paul. But yet the gun was traced back to Paul.
Fuck, this is so weird.
Yes.
Paul hired someone then.
Yeah. He denies. Well,
or Paul's been bucking his hairstylist.
That could be.
Yeah.
That could be. He could have hired somebody. Yeah, it could have
Check
been
out our
fucking...
Assassins episode.
Oh yeah, we didn't assess. Yeah,
I mean,
we did.
I shave my own head because it's fucking expensive. I can't even imagine if I had long hair and shit. God damn it.
It is very expensive.
Yeah. And yeah,
$150 to cut my shitty short hair.
My hair's getting long enough where I have to style it, or else I have to shave it off again. So yeah, he denies everything. He states the gun went missing long before in a home robbery, and he hasn't seen it since.
What year was that, Paul? When did that happen, Paul?
Yeah.
Paul, we have some questions here.
Paul, if you could, OVfeedback@gmail.com. The gun in question shows that it had been recently, within the last 1 to 2 months, been cleaned and maintained. So it isn't a gun. It's a gun that had to be maintained and cleaned in the last 2 months. It had to belong to a competent owner that cleaned it purposely in the last couple months. So if it was stolen from Paul, it couldn't have been in like some shop or in some basement or in some box for years. It had to be maintained and cleaned. It didn't show any signs of like wear and tear or corrosion or anything like that. The police made Paul the main suspect. They brought him in for questioning. His interrogation yielded no real confession or evidence or anything they could hold him on. So they brought in handwriting analysis. Now, handwriting analysis is rarely admissible in court because the scientific evidence is kind of shaky and it's not reliable enough to match. And even though it's
very personal.
Yeah. Even though it's sort of scientifically not based, even the experts back then agree that the tests the police did were against guidelines.
Oh,
so
damn.
Yeah, so even though it's not scientifically viable, they even fucked up on doing it the non-scientifically viable way and made it even more biased.
Whoops.
Really?
They did that by giving Paul a version of the original letter and then just saying, if you could copy that as close as possible.
Oh, damn it.
And then they
Paul's
used...
like making squiggles in the E's.
Yeah. Yeah. And, like, the police were pretty much implied, like, copy the letter. And Paul copied the letter, and then the police said, matches. Guilty.
Yeah.
And then they...
Forensics. Da da da.
Yeah.
For more than 7 years, the CircleVille letter writer continued to threaten Mary Gillespie. Then the threats became deadly when Mary was almost killed by a crude booby trap. The police learned from tracing the gun's serial number that it belonged to Mary's brother-in-law, Paul Freshour. He had just split up with his wife, Ron Gillespie's sister.
I admitted the gun was mine, but I hadn't seen it for a long time. I'd had no reason to check up on it or anything, and I don't know when it come up missing. I really don't know what happened to it, and I told him that, and that's the truth. And that's how it was.
Sheriff Dwight Radcliffe asked Paul to take a handwriting test. Paul agreed.
He would give me an actual letter and ask me maybe to do the envelope part, just as near as I could in the envelope. And then on some, he would take the actual letter out and have me to do them as near as I could on the letters. And I did them because I knew I wasn't responsible for the letters.
That is not the proper way to test to see if someone has a certain writing style, because if they're copying from a letter, they're going to try to emulate the style. And the experts said that the testing was improper. So they didn't really say that these letters were written by Paul Freshour. They said that they could have been.
The sheriff also searched Paul's garage. He turned over all the evidence he gathered to the courts.
He called in the prosecutor and told the prosecutor that was my writing on the booby trap. And then the prosecutor is the one that actually told me that there was a booby trap found, and I was under arrest for attempted murder and placed on a $50,000 cash bond.
They said that Paul could be the letter writer, and then they had the handwriting analysis compare the block letters on the sign that Mary tore down with the letters in the letter, and said, okay, Paul's the letter writer for that. Those letters are on the sign are close enough to the letters in the letter, so that means ABC, Paul is the one that tried to murder Mary.
Oh, goodness.
And they charged Paul with attempted murder.
Okay, but both of those letters that I read, they're both totally different.
Oh, yeah.
There's no way that anyone could ever say that they were
absolutely
the same person
not
that wrote them. Yeah.
Paul had a solid alibi with multiple witnesses. But the police never pursued that lead. So Paul had a solid alibi and multiple witnesses that wanted to come to the police and provide statements. But when the police were interviewed, they said that they never followed that lead. When they were asked why in court, they said that they were focused on getting justice for Mary.
Because fuck it.
A-cab.
Yeah.
I really just feel like it's Mary. She's like, I don't know how I didn't like get shot by that gun. Like it was just a coincidence, I guess. I just
That's
knew
one
how
of
to
the
take it
theories.
down.
That's one of the theories.
She's doing what I did in high
creating
school
all
and like
sorts of
spinning rumors
drama.
about herself.
Well, that's what small town folk do. They just stir the pot, right?
Hey, wow, you're really calling me out right now.
I feel personally.
Another thing was a fresh shoe print was found at the scene of the crime, but it was 5 sizes bigger than Paul's shoe size.
That's a big difference.
Yeah.
That's such a big difference that it's fake. Like,
Yeah.
he bought those on purpose.
Could be.
Think.
Stomping around.
So
Stupid
Paul
ass.
was sentenced to 18 years in prison. After 8 years, he's up for parole, but is denied. The reason that he is denied is because the parole board told him that the letters were still circulating, as active as ever. And they said, you can't be granted parole because it's obvious you're somehow getting these letters out there. So then the parole board put him in solitary confinement for a long time. And solitary confinement is monitored 24 hours a day. He's not provided any access to stamps or paper or pencils or writing utensils. There's no way he could have sent letters from solitary confinement. If he was in general pop, there are ways you can sneak those out. But in solitary, not likely. Yet, when he was in solitary, the letters kept on circling at the same frequency.
What were those letters saying?
Actually, one of the letters was actually targeted at Paul.
Oh, fuck.
The letters were continuing the rumor mill. They were continuing to tell people secrets. Here, I'll put it... Who wants to read this one?
Fuck, okay. This is really broken. What does that say?
Fresher.
Fresher. Now when are you going to believe you aren't getting out of there? I told you 2 years ago. When we set them up, they stay set up. Don't you listen at all? That reminds me of a Love and Hip Hop episode. Didn't I tell you? Okay, anyway, sorry, that was not part of it. No one wants you out. No one... The joke is on you. Ha ha. Tell no one of this letter. I saw the paper. Great news. Great. The sheriff loved it. Ha ha. Do you believe it now? Do you? I like low-key feel like this is Donald Trump.
Honestly.
Ha ha. Okay, whoa.
There are
But
a
also,
lot
why
of
are they
colons.
using colons for punctuation?
But like,
So many colons.
This is like so weird.
Yeah.
And all the writing looks completely
Can
different.
I see that again? Because that looks like the second time that you showed me. Like, it's not this one. Where's the other one that you showed me? Like,
is this one?
This is so crazy. Where's that fucked up G?
You're really on that G.
I'm really upset by this. This is crazy.
G unit.
G.
Yeah, so
Exactly.
Paul is sentenced...
kind of look the same.
So it's obviously not fucking Paul then. Is it Mary? Mary's a stupid bitch. Sorry, I'm getting really upset by that.
So it's Paul the letter writer. Here are the points for yes. It was his gun. And like the excuse that like I was robbed an indeterminate time ago is kind of a weak excuse. I mean it happens, but
What if he knew it was Mary that took the
It's a
gun the
group
entire
effort.
time because they were fucking and he just didn't want to say anything and he's like keeping it low key because he was fucking Mary.
with the volume of the letters, I mean
This is so extra to
Yeah.
like cover up your friend with benefits situation.
Yeah.
But I mean, this is like back
Yeah.
way when like loyalty was way more intense than it is now. Like
this
right
seems-
now,
it seemed like it'd be a lot less effort just to jack off. I mean,
Paul
Really?
I mean, obviously she's got bomb pussy.
sorry. Does she have like,
Mary's got that juicy.
I mean, $1,300 on stamps, pussy? Who knows?
I mean,
I do it.
I hope
I do
I
it.
have
I'm just
$1,300 on stamps, pussy. Jesus,
I think that's
what
all
I'm shooting
what,
for.
what,
I
what we
strive
all
I'm happy
did
for you.
up to, yeah.
I hope our listeners are as far into this episode as Ginger is.
So another point for Paul. He knew the where on Mary lived, their schedules. Perhaps he had access to their secrets, and he had like an invested interest in them. He was family with them.
Mm-hmm.
The letters stopped when they sent him letters in retaliation. That's another point for Paul being a letter writer. The points for him not being. His motive is very unclear. Why would he be so concerned with his I guess sisters?
Sister-in-law.
Yeah, his sister-in-law's affair. Like, it didn't seem like he... Like, it's very odd motivations that he would care so much about that.
Maybe he was in love with her.
Could be. The mysterious man 30 minutes before. The suspect that had a El Camino. Before they decided on Paul as their main suspect, One of the suspects the police were looking at had a brother who had access to an El Camino. So he had a brother that had an El Camino. Paul had a solid alibi with multiple witnesses that saw him. The letters were still circulating even though Paul was still in solitary confinement, and the shoe print was 5 sizes too big. These letters went on for a long, long time, up until 2003. In fact,
wow.
when the TV show Unsolved Mysteries covered this exact same case in 1994, they received a letter themselves. Who would like to read that one? Yeah,
that is big dick energy.
Oh, yeah.
Wow.
And it's
writing your little mystery letters to Unsolved Mysteries.
Gee, no, I could never.
I'll read it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, this one is real. This is the best quality I can find, too.
Pocket, CircleVille, Protect,
I think.
CircleVille, Chip, Do...
Forget. Is that Forget, maybe? Forget CircleVille Chip.
Forget?
Is that what?
Maybe.
I think
Forget
so.
CircleVille Chip.
I think that might be Forget.
Do nothing to hurt Sheriff Arcliffe. If you came to Chip,
I think that's Ohio.
Oh, Ohio?
Yeah.
UL sickos will say the Circleville writer.
El Sickos.
I love that.
Yeah, El Sickos.
It 100% says El Sickos.
So, I feel like that's appropriating some culture somewhere.
Oh, yes.
So...
What the fuck?
So
this is so weird.
The interpretation of this letter, and
also
again,
different writing, by the way.
Yeah.
Just so everybody knows that this block lettering is different than the last two and the very first one.
They're all different. They all look different to me.
Well, the last, like the one that he showed me and the one that you showed me were the most similar with the fucked up G's. The G's were that was
the
similar.
G's were similar, yeah.
But this is totally a whole different thing.
Yeah.
So, like, now that Paul is in, is there another person who's like, okay, he's in jail, so fuck it. Now I'm going to do my best.
There's Mary who wrote the first one. Paul probably wrote the 2. And now who is writing these?
Well, there's how many letters in total?
It's
There's
just been a group
1,500.
effort.
1,500 to 5,000.
This is the craziest group chat, and I want to be a part of this one too.
Yeah, so you can see the interpretation of this letter, because I watched the Unsolved Mystery episode to try and get what the letter writer was talking about.
Pull that up right now.
When he mentioned do nothing to hurt Sheriff Radcliffe, it's because Sheriff Radcliffe was kind of being criticized in the documentary, being criticized on Dateline, because he was the one that changed his mind from, like, Ron died of suspect motive, so somebody killed him, to Ron was killed in an accident. So the documentary was critical of that. So I think that's where that comes from. And the documentary went in to say that they might do a follow-up by coming to CircleVille to interview some of the people involved. So I think that's why they're saying, like, don't come to Ohio and all that.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. This is really intense. Like, this is... Oh my god.
Yeah, and I don't know, another tiny motive, maybe, is Paul's husband, Karen. So Paul Freshour's husband, Karen. She lost custody of the kids in the house when she divorced Paul.
Wife or...
What did I say?
Husband.
Oh, yeah. Paul's
I was
wife,
really
Karen.
like, wow, this is a really progressive era right now. I didn't think we were here.
Damn the 70s.
Holy shit.
Yeah, so Paul's wife, Karen, she lost custody of the kids in the house when she divorced Paul, but she got the kids back and the house back when Paul went to prison.
Oh, hella sad.
Oh.
There's a lot of different motives here.
Yeah.
I mean, it's the 70s, right?
I mean,
it's also small towns. Like, small towns are just
so dog.
Oh, yeah.
That's,
and that's where you find the most messed up
And they're
people.
like,
the thing is that there doesn't even need
it gets
to
even messier.
There doesn't need to be motive because people in small towns are just messy.
They're just bored.
They just love this shit.
They're bored and they're psycho and
yeah, absolutely. No offense to people in small towns, but
oh no,
I mean, full offense, honestly. Like,
I pretty
stop
much
messing with
grew
your
up
neighbors
small
and just get a
town.
hobby.
I pretty much grew up small town, so no, I know firsthand.
Yeah, we're talking about you. We are talking about you. Not you specifically, not you, but them in small towns. Stop fucking with each other. It's not okay.
I'm talking specifically about Squishy.
Yeah,
about where?
Squishy. About Squishy. This is just so bizarre to me.
Mm-hmm.
Like I can't even speak English. The writing styles have changed. Like, one person is locked away forever. Letters are still coming. there are relationships that are like completely confuffled because of the entire thing.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's like a group effort. From
Maybe
the
there was
beginning,
some
I
sort
think.
of cult thing going on, and they wanted
Why?
to keep
Okay,
secrets,
but,
but somebody came out, and Mary
Was
maybe first
not
came
fucking
out.
in the fuck group? She was like, no, listen, I am not swinging all the way on that dang-a-lang. I only want this one dang-a-lang, and everybody got mad. It was the swingers.
Yeah, this girl's got one tree she
And
wants
the
to climb.
It was a satanic sex cult.
Always. That's always the answer.
Yeah, I'll call back to our OTO episode.
That's a good episode.
It was. That was a positive cult. I liked OTO. That's a cult I want to join.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to join this writing cult. This is weird.
You should join our
They
cult.
got a lit group
We-
chat though.
We have a FinDom named Val that we worship, and in her free time, she makes sure people take their meds, and she tells people to have a good day.
Once I'm in the group chat,
She's a
I'll
glorious
consider
goddess.
joining the cult.
Like, this is the same reason I covered like the Lisa Ann Froon and Chris Kremers going missing in the Panama jungle. And
That was a good one.
Because I love, as much as they infuriate me, I love mysteries that I can't get a solid answer on. Because
I'm outraged right now by it, honestly. Like, I really like answers. Like I said before, I'm a Gemini. Like, I really like to know cut and dry. This is really bothering me.
I like speculation. It's spicy.
No, I'm with it. I love that. But it's just, like, really irking me.
See,
at the
I'm
same
I'm
time.
on the other end of the spectrum of Gemini. Like, I'm very quiet. I like listening. I like hearing stuff that is not very black. I
wish
don't
we were
like
more
the
like
black and
that.
white. I
I will
like
never
all
be
the
like
gray
that.
and color
Facts.
and stuff that's in the middle.
I like the black and white, and I'm a Pisces.
Oh, yeah.
I'm a Pisces
You're
air
another
type.
dual
We're the
sign.
only dualies. Thank you.
So
Thank you.
I was
Thank
born
you.
on March 20th, which is apparently the day it
Hey,
switches.
I was born on January 20th. I'm between Aquarius and Capricorn.
Nice.
Depending on the
Cusps.
paper,
Yep.
I can see whether, I don't know, I'm going to find a new friend or
My
I'm going
moon
to
is
lose
Virgo,
money.
so that's like really wild. It like a Gemini and a Virgo should never be in the same room except for the same body.
Yes.
Jesus.
Good luck.
Also, I worship Link from Legend of Zelda. Yeah. I think he's pretty
I
sweet.
worship.
Also, if you like did your birth chart and you
Same.
match up with those, like hit me up.
Just kidding.
It's a long
Looking for
match.
love.
So I think, I don't know. Like, I think the simplest explanation to account for the volume of secrets, the volume of letters, the time spent, I think there has to be multiple writers.
No shit.
Like, I think there has
So
to
how
be.
many years in
gotta
total is
be,
this?
yeah.
So it went to 2003 or it went longer than
From
2003?
1977 to 2003. So that's
Wow, 1977.
that's 3 plus 20 plus 3, so 26 years.
Damn.
I do math
26.
like a kindergartner, so that's how.
Wow, that's like really interesting.
You know why I can do math? D&D. That's the only fucking reason. Because I had math killing dragons. That's what I did.
So what? So like how old were these people? Do we know? Like what would you take plus 26
Like when it
on
started?
That? Yeah, like how old was Mary?
I'm
That's
assuming
a
they
good-
were in their like
30s, 20s?
late 20s,
Late 20s?
early 30s.
So they were 26 plus 26. That means 52 in 2003.
Yeah.
Like
Maybe even early 20s, because I mean, people married younger.
That's true in those days, yeah.
Yeah, that's true. So like let's say
23.
23.
I think Mary
They've been
Gillespie's
drinking for
still
a
alive.
couple years. Plus 26 years, 49 years old in 2003.
Mm-hmm.
So like why did have the letters completely stop since 2003?
There hasn't been any letters since 2003. They kept up at a steady pace right up until then, and then they kind of stopped. And did the letter writer move away? Did they die? Did they become disinterested? And if they all stopped at once, that's the other thing that's weird. Like, if there was copycats, you think they would have emerged now and then.
Right.
But they all stopped at once. But then again, it goes to the thing: how can one person have all these secrets? How can one person have all these motives and all these different conflicting things? Why would you
And
murder?
different writing.
Yeah. Why would you murder someone and then convince the police that their account of having an accident is wrong and that you should investigate the murderer?
Was there ever like a mass suicide or mass killing or something in 2003 where like
In Ohio?
yeah, or in that area that maybe one like a cult related thing might have.
Oh, who knows? It might not even be something dramatic.
I know
that.
is I'm not going to Ohio
Somebody got in a car accident. Somebody had a heart attack. I don't know.
Yeah.
To me, it
Who
sounds
knows?
like a bunch of bored, bitter people in a small town
Yeah.
that decided to start this, mail out a bunch of letters to fuck with people, and then
Yeah.
it just got
Out of
super
hand.
carried away.
And they all got
copycats
bored.
got in on it, and like it just kept going and going
Yeah.
and snowballing.
Yeah.
Until 2020, when the writer emerges again after hearing this episode.
Yeah.
Honestly, I'm not even that worried about it. I don't even care. Just leave me alone. I'm so sorry. I'm not interested.
Please send all your letters to Ginger.
OV Pod is the first.
Oh, fuck you guys. I'm
People to get the next letter.
We'll
leave
pass
me
them along.
Don't leave me alone.
Yeah, CircleVille Writer, we can give you a platform. We have exactly 2 listeners in New Zealand, so
we do. We have 2.
if you send us a letter, we will read it out, and you can. Our 5 listeners in Russia, or like 20 listeners in China.
Oh shit!
Like
we can tell secrets worldwide.
Oh yeah, we can have like a quarter of a stadium full of people.
I would
like,
totally give that guy a platform.
Yeah.
Like, seriously, that'd be awesome.
ovfeedback@gmail.com, Le'Veon.
Or at me on Twitter. Slide in those DMs.
Yes, slide right in. Well, you're welcome. I'll grease the mat for you. It'll be good. Yeah.
Okay, but like really, like this is really bothering me.
You're just gonna go home and stay up all night and solve the CircleVille.
I am never
letter
gonna
mystery.
stop with these Centerville. Like I don't think you understand. I literally am a Gemini and a Virgo. Like I'm fucked. This is gonna haunt me for the rest of my life.
I got your after work activities. If you look up YouTube CircleVille Writers, search by playlist. There's a first playlist that has about 12 documentaries around it.
I'm in it.
There you
go. I'm gonna see how many listeners we have in Ohio.
I shouldn't have underestimated. Yes.
Now, how many listeners do we have in Ohio?
Oh fuck! I'm so sorry.
As a quick aside, we have like already 300,000 like downloads of our
We've
podcast.
got over 300,000.
So like,
I think we're at 31 or 32 right now.
We're at 302 right now.
Okay, I'm on
so.
CentralvilleOhio.gov.
Also,
their population is 23,874. How much is that encountered? Like, what is happening?
Yeah. Also, I scheduled our latest episode to release at 11:59, so it's going to release in 2 minutes.
Everyone there right now is 47.8 years old. That's the median age. So, like, that person is still there and alive. You
gotta calm down.
Really?
She will never calm down. And I'm here for it.
I don't think you understand. I'm really
worried about you now.
I'm going to go home and watch this Unsolved Mysteries episode, and, like, things are really not... I have anxiety.
I think
this
she
is not
needs
okay.
someone with
If you
her
legit want
tonight.
if you legit want to
so.
email me like a rambling essay, I'll read that shit. No problem. No fucking problem.
I would rather
But you
talk
have to
than write.
punctuate it with colons.
So
Only
our-
colons.
Yes.
So we have
Okay,
886 downloads in Ohio.
No.
886, so probably not too many.
Fuck.
Okay.
Yeah,
Ohio
so
people don't like us.
send us some letters or something, guys. Like,
Yeah. Ohio. Disappointed.
Yeah, let's
Like,
get
okay,
this.
but, like,
let's get this
So
going
can we
again.
just talk about the median age being 48? And the writer would have been, if we put 26 plus 26, which is a rough 26 plus 26 years, would be 49. So, like, they're probably listening to this right now, and we're all in danger.
Oh yeah, they're probably still alive.
Come at me.
Please write us a letter.
Or just write somebody else a letter. Like, revive from 2003 to 2020. Like, we really need to see, like, where you're at.
The 70s boomer.
the
millennial-
Circle,
No, they would have
Where's Paul? Is he
CircleVille
alive
letter
still?
reunion tour. Is that what we're like calling on here? Letter writer reunion tour.
Okay, but also, if you join
come on,
the...
guys, get together. All of you just
Let's
come
start
on
this
in
shit right.
and-
You know what? You want a secret? You want a secret?
If you join the Patreon, I'm pretty sure my address is on there. So send me letters.
Oh shit!
I'm in.
Yeah.
Ooh.
CircleVille Letter Writer. Join our Patreon.
See,
Is
Join
Mary
our
still
Discord.
alive?
one day we'll be able to afford a
Creep up
post.
backwards.
One day we'll be able to afford a post box.
Okay, so what happened to Mary, though? Like, honestly, besides all the bullshit. Like, is she still alive, or she is?
Still alive, still around. She hasn't been
Send
interviewed.
her a letter.
She hasn't been interviewed in quite a few years. I tried to find like a contact, but I couldn't find any like public contacts, and I didn't want to like be a creep and dig.
No, we
so,
don't dox her.
Yeah,
no.
I just like I wonder if she had like an email for interviews or anything like that, but I couldn't find anything like that, so I didn't feel comfortable contacting her. So, but yeah, she's still around, still alive.
I think she just gave up in 2003. She was like, fuck it, I'm done.
I mean, you'd get tired of it after a while, probably.
That's a really long time. 26 years is a long time to be writing
I
some
feel like
bullshit
after
letters.
26 years, like the shock value would wear off, and people would just stop caring. They'd be like, "Oh fuck, another letter."
Yep.
Right.
Oh boy. Yep.
However,
I'm like, tell me your secrets.
Yep. They
join
know-
our Patreon, join our Discord, find my home address,
Yep.
send me letters.
Oh geez, they know about my beaver skin masturbation rug. What are
They
they gonna
know
do?
all of that, and I'm here for her being open to it, because please leave me out. Like,
What if it's like a
I'll pass them
Nostradamus
along.
thing where, you know, the secrets or the letters or whatever is coming to these people is just so vague and disjointed that you just look for something to apply it to. And so, you know,
Oh yeah,
That's interesting.
you know, so, you know, it's like stay away from that guy. And it's like, well, I wasn't going near that guy, but now that I got this weird ass letter.
I'm going to
talk to this guy and learn more about you know, and you just interpret it. You know, it's like, you know, you read through all these like Nostradamus predictions. And you're like, oh, he predicted summer. It's like, no, it's just fucking rambling guy.
Yeah.
Like, there's no.
That's interesting though. What if it was like all a
these
big
people like interpreting it to them?
It's all like a big psychological social experiment.
Or like, you know, people who do astrology read their horoscopes and
oh shit, shots fired.
So me. Yeah.
Sometimes you wake up and you feel bad, but sometimes you wake up and you feel good.
Oh, I know
some
that
days you want to
feeling.
cry, and some days you want to just pound the air and say, fuck yeah. Like, all the truth is and shit. And, yeah.
Lots of shots fired for you.
Oh man, there's this girl, Karen Freshour, who used the original series of letters as inspiration to concoct a plot to frame her ex-husband years later.
Yeah.
These letters were used by so many other people.
Scandalo.
Oh, yeah.
Spin-off episode, spin-off.
Yep.
Butterfly effect.
Yeah,
I'm like really deep into this on Reddit now.
I like it. I love it. If you find out anything, you know.
Yeah.
You can find my address on Patreon.
If anybody from CircleVille or anybody, I don't know, who knows somebody who got a letter, we would love to get their opinion.
Said, does anyone actually involved in the case believe that Mary Giuseppe and Gordon Massey only started their affair after he had gotten divorced?
No.
This gets deep.
Nobody believes that.
It's plausible, but I think they were fucking before. I don't know.
Yeah, they were fucking before.
Right, which is...
I think she said that because she wanted... and she only admitted that after her husband was dead, so I think that was also a factor.
Oh, somebody just said UL Sickles will pay for this podcast a year ago. It's not what just said, but like...
I was like, oh shit!
Oh my gosh.
That's clear!
Yeah. Anyways, yeah. So, does anybody have any final thoughts or theories on this before we close this sucker down?
Ginger is upset. But she's also going to go down into a terrible Reddit web.
Yeah, like I said,
I'm not okay.
Rambling essays are welcome in the email box. I will do a
Just
sleep.
don't send letters, send essays.
Yeah. I do a sleepy track on the Patreon sometimes, like reading things like slow and like soothingly and all that. Like I'll do a sleepy track to like CircleVille rambling. Yeah.
Oh, that'd be good.
That's actually good. And like find as many letters as you can and just read them out.
I still need to read the letter that I was promising to read.
It'll be a lot better than my Trump tweets sleep track.
I kind of liked that one.
Yeah?
Yeah.
It was so repetitive that like it would kind of soothe people in the sleep.
It was just all like, and blah 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 blah, and blah blah blah, and blah 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 blah.
I hate the FBI. I hate the police.
And here's the
I hate
people
the
Trump
Republicans.
thinks is
I hate
incompetent.
the conservatives.
I hate journalists.
Yes, I hate the journalists. I hate Matt Lauer. I hate Ann Coulter. I hate Bernie Sanders. Like
I listened to that on the flight to Vegas on the airplane. It was
I fell asleep
listening.
to that when I was on vacation one day.
Yeah. Anyway,
I want to go home and eat macaroni. So
it's back on
close
bedtime.
out.
Yep. So for Occultae Veritatis, I have been Ood Gallifrey.
Sage Murray, hungry for macaroni.
And Richard Bigley.
And 3 guests in studio.
Squishy.
Selkie.
So disturbed, Ginger.
All right. CircleVille writer, ovfeedback@gmail.com. Write us in. Have a nice night.
Love you, bye.
Mwah.
Oh, my head. Okay. Calling back yet again to the 1920s for another hit from 100 years ago. This time it's Vesta Tilley with her song, It's Part of a Policeman's Duty. Yeah, it's real bootlicky, but it has a nice beat. See you in the after show.
It's part of a policeman's duty, sung by Miss Vesta Tilley, Edison Records.
There are lots of things that a policeman does for which he gets no credit, and it's half his heart, although his feet are big enough to tread it. Now take our beat. There's 30 cooks the policeman has to sup with. Fancy 30 spoons and meals a night. That man has to put up with. It's part of a policeman's duty, part of a policeman's work. I think I'm right in telling you it's a thing never shirked by the man in blue. He'll do his best for a walking restaurant and pub is part of a policeman's duties. And should a little kid get lost, he's on his track, well, rather. And the little chap is not afraid of him, but calls him father. He sends a hungry kid a bun, and a tear on his eyelid is, as the mother thanks him, and he says, well, yes, I'm fond of kiddies. It's part of a policeman's duty, part of a policeman's work. Whenever a policeman's married, he is sure to be blessed with a family. He'll do his best for England's beer and beauty. To be the father of 8 or 9 at least is part of a policeman's duty.
Alrighty, quick little after show for you guys. Here is Dennis, also known as Ice D, the man who reads our disclaimer every episode, reading the lyrics from a Tenacious D song. If you want to see the video of him doing this, rather than just the audio, join our Patreon for little as $1 a month. www.patreon.com/ovpod. Enjoy.
Hello, I'm Ice D, otherwise known as Dennis Rimmer. This is a reading from the Tenacious D lyrics book, and I'm Ice D, not Tenacious D. This one's called Fuck Her Gently. This is a song for the ladies, but fellas, listen closely. You don't always have to fuck her hard. In fact, sometimes that's not right to do. Sometimes you got to make some love, and fucking her gives some smoochies too. Sometimes you gotta to squeeze, sometimes you gotta say please. Sometimes you got to say, hey, I'm gonna fuck you softly. I'm gonna screw you gently. I'm gonna hump you sweetly. I'm gonna ball you discreetly. And if you say, hey, I brought you flowers, and then you say, wait a minute, Sally, I think I got something in my teeth. Could you get it out for me? That's fucking teamwork. What's your favorite polish? I don't know what that means because I'm old. That's fucking teamwork. What's your favorite position? That's cool with me. It's not my favorite, but I'll do it for you. What's your favorite dish? I'm not gonna cook it, but I order it from Zanzibar. And then I'm gonna love you completely. Then I'll fucking fuck you discreetly. And then I'll fucking bone you discreetly and completely. Then I'm gonna fuck you hard. Hard.